Assalamualaikum.
Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Welcome to the Two Peas in a Podcast with me, Marium with a U, and my fellow host, Marium with an A. Say Assalamu Mariam.
Assalamualaikum, everybody.
Thanks for joining us again this week. So in the series, we've been trying to summarize key points of some really popular personal development books. So we did Atomic Habits, and then we realized that actually one book a show is not going to really cover it. So from then, we've been covering the 4-Day Work Week by Tim Ferriss, and we've got quite a way through. We've worked our way through a decent amount so far. So yeah, and we've had some great interactions as well, alhamdulillah. So get in touch, give us your favorite productivity tip. As we said previously, every week we'll be giving a Baraka box away to the best comment. And that is it's a Baraka box is a graze box. It's a graze box. It's a luxury graze box of Sunnah foods. So the winner and the best comment or somebody who comments the best productivity tip will win a Baraka box. So yeah, we'll crack on. Mariam, do you want to tell the listeners how they can get in touch?
Yeah, so if you guys are listening right now, you probably already have tuned in one way or another, but if you can share the stream, and the way that people can tune in is via Facebook, via the YouTube links. Those are the best ways to live stream the show right now. There is a live stream link on Twitter, but I think YouTube and Facebook are probably the easiest way. And also for the Baraka box, all you have to do is go on Instagram and type in Baraka box. The way you spell it is written on the screen right now. BARAQAH box. It's called the Baraka box on Instagram. Then you can see what's inside of it. So inshallah, if you guys can get interactive, share the stream and share your productivity hacks and productivity tips and tricks, then inshallah the best ones are going to be offered the chance to get the prize.
Jazakallah khair, Mariam. So the 4-Day Work Week. So the 4-Day Work Week is basically a book on how the life we want is closer than we think, and there are lots of good ideas and exercises within the book, some of which we've covered and some of which we'll cover. So the idea is there are two groups of people. There's the new rich and the deferrers. The deferrers are the old school kind of type of people that think that you have to work really, really hard, grind really, really hard all your life to retire and then enjoy retirement. And they value money over most things, where the new rich are the types of people that value time as well as money and actually would like to distribute mini retirements or enjoy themselves throughout life, taking periods of breaks, holidays, etc., rather than just working all your life until you're 65 or whatever and then trying to enjoy it then. Mariam, from all the points we've discussed so far in the past few weeks, have there any that have stuck to you or that you've implemented or anything like that?
Do you know what? I think I could do the recap, if you don't mind.
Yeah,
actually, some of your favorite ones. They might help jog my memory.
Yeah, I'll try. I'm not very good at short recaps, so I'll try and keep the rich. And we had the deferrers, and then he had 8 simple rules that you need to follow if you want to be part of the new rich. So that those were, let me find them. Interest and energy are cyclical, so we should try and alternate between periods of work and periods of rest. That was number 1. Number 2 is less is not laziness. So the idea of how we put it was work smart, not hard. You don't have to grind really, really hard in order to be successful. There are systems you can put in place to work smart and get the results a lot easier. Number 3 was the timing is never right. So there's a quote as well he says in the book. Let me find it. Oh, here it is. Waiting for someday will take your dreams to the grave. So yeah, there's always going to be an excuse basically. So just do it. That's basically it. Another one was emphasize your strengths. So don't try and focus too much on your weaknesses. It's good to be aware of weaknesses, but really focus on your strengths and think about ways that you're uniquely placed to leverage up your time and your skills, Number 6 was money alone is not the solution. That's what it was. So a lot of us think that, you know, we can't do this because we don't have enough money, we can't do that because we don't have enough money. But actually, if you think cleverly and creatively, as you said last week, there are ways in which we can get things we want in a more budget friendly way. And point number 7 was relative income matters more than absolute income. So again, looking at time as a resource as well as money. And the last one was distress is bad, eustress is good. So basically push yourself out of your comfort zone, not to the point where you're distressed or panicked, but just enough where you are out of your comfort zone, trying new things, making risks. And so those were the first 8 points of the book. And then that led us on to the acronym, which I will go on about in a minute, but I'll let you just, any comments on that?
Yeah, so it was the time is money type of attitude.
Yeah.
And so, you know how people give up their money, people give up their time to be able to pursue money, but there's only a limited amount of time that you have in the day. So there's only, if you are going to have the attitude of, not attitude, but like that traditional mindset of you got to exchange time in order to get money, but then you don't have time to spend that money or enjoy the fruit of your labor.
Exactly.
So that was probably the highlight for me, is like try to utilize time in different ways so that you're not having to give away your time in order to earn money back for it. Make your money work for you type of attitude.
Exactly. And you know, the point that a lot of these people have, or the reason that they're working so hard, is so that they can be happy, which is a conversation for another time, the definition of happy, but you know, that they can be happy, that they can have a comfortable life, but they're missing out on most of their life in pursuit of a comfortable life. Like, it doesn't make sense. And so so the, you know, the new rich attitude of, you know, working hard but enjoying your life while you still have your youth, and we're not even promised tomorrow. So imagine you work all your life only for it to end. You know, it's about balance, and it's about consistency, and balancing it out in a way that you're working hard but, you know, enjoying the fruits of your labors as you go. I think, and Tim Ferriss thinks, is better than, you know, working really hard, not enjoying yourself, not enjoying your life. You know, you're letting important relationships just kind of slip by as well. Those experiences, those memories are not being made because you're thinking that, you know, I'm doing it for the benefit of everybody else. I'm doing it for everybody's happiness. Well, actually, everybody's happiness doesn't lie in these material gains. Obviously, you're doing it so your family can be comfortable, but if that means you're sacrificing, you know, those experiences with your children or your spouse or your family, then is it really worth it? So yeah, I agree that one is that one stuck out to me as well.
Can I ask as well, there was something in the book that you said you slightly disagree with in the Tim Ferriss book. What was it and why? There was something, there was an emotion in there from the last show, and I was just trying to remember. You said something about it, and you said, "Oh, I don't quite agree with this point entirely." Do you remember what that was?
Was it? Let me think. It wasn't the timing thing, because I definitely agree with that. Was it it might have been the emphasize your strengths and not your weaknesses. Was it that one?
Oh yeah.
I think that one. I'm just looking through the rest of the list and looking at whether, I think it would have been that one. I think we had a discussion last week about, you know, being self-aware and being aware of your weaknesses, because only when you're aware you can actually work on them and better yourself. And obviously the whole point of like reading these like personal development books and hopefully listening to the podcast and the radio show is so that we can better ourselves. So I didn't agree completely with his like emphasize your strengths, don't try too hard to face your weaknesses. But I get where he's coming from. Often, you know, I think it's you that said last week that, you know, as humans we tend to focus on the negatives, which, you know, is not productive. Whereas if you focus on your strengths, then obviously that's you're going to know better where to place yourselves in, you know, in the world of work or business or relationships, that kind of thing. So I still don't entirely agree with it. I think that we should know both our strengths and weaknesses, and that we should work on our weaknesses for sure, but I don't think we should like focus on them too much like some people do. Do you agree?
Yeah, do you know what? I need to revisit this book and actually add it to my list, because it's going to be interesting to sort of figure out why so many people agree with it. Because I've been looking over the past like a week, and I've not been searching out for this book. This book keeps coming up in recommendations everywhere, and a lot of people are taking away from it. And I really want to know why like certain books are so popular. So this would be good to find out why. So if any listeners have been reading it as well, that would be really good to get your input and find out why this book speaks to you.
The book itself is actually over a decade. I can't remember, but I'm sure it's well over a decade old. And nowadays, I mean, just thanks to social media and just the general mentality of people, the world of kind of productivity and personal development has really, really grown. And the book, though it's an older book, a lot of the ideas that I use today are taken from the book, and a lot of new ideas and new kind of methods of productivity have stemmed from the ideas that were written in this book. So it's definitely one that has kind of stood the test of time so far. And it's one that a lot of like productivity gurus or whatever you want to call them have taken from. So yeah, it's definitely good. There's a copy in the office. I'm sure the owner will be happy to lend it to you. So yeah, so no, it's interesting, reading a lot of these books and watching a lot of these kind of productivity videos online. There are a lot of similar themes and similar strategies that are mentioned, and so it's nice to have that crossover, and it just means that it's reinforcing it. So there's something that I'm just trying to find it, something that we're going to cover today that was actually covered in Atomic Habits, and it's just nice to see how the different authors kind of explain their kind of definition of this certain method, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
So yeah, anyway, so that's that. So yeah, the book is fantastic. I highly recommend it. The language within it is a little bit dated. I mean, Tim Ferriss himself says that my writing style was different, and it's not the way that I write now, and the language he uses hasn't really dated well. But the concepts and the key points are definitely, beneficial, I think. And the good thing about these books is that, you may read them and you don't have to apply every single one. Not every single one you won't relate or benefit or take from everyone. But even if you take one or two, it can make such a difference. So I think that's really, really important when kind of reading these kind of like personal development books. So those 8 points were the first key ideas of the book on how to join the new rich or the new way of approaching life. For the rest of the book, he talks about the 4-part method for getting to the point where you are part of the new rich. So the first point, he's kind of discussing and describing what the new rich approach to life is. And then the last part, he has a 4-part method on, as I said, getting to the point of where you are part of the new rich. And that follows the acronym DEAL, DEAL. So the first part of the acronym D stands for define. And that's the idea. The idea here is that if you want to be part of the new rich, it's worth defining your fears and also defining your dreams and defining what you actually want from life. So I guess, a lot of people have a lot of ideas, but you need to, I guess, define kind of another word for focus, to be honest. That's something that I definitely lack or have lacked in the past. I'm just an ideas person, so do you have a lot of ideas, and I'm kind of like never live the same day twice kind of person. Like I like to try different things. I'm really hungry for new experiences, and that's good, learning new things, but you then become like a jack of all trades and a master of none. And I think that's difficult, because if you want to progress, having that focus, defining what your dreams are, what your goals are, they help you focus and get further in life, I think. So yeah, define is the first part of the acronym. He talks about, Tim Ferriss, he talks about the idea of mitigating fear. He says that fear is stopping us from trying out new things. And I think he's completely right about that. He says most of us would rather be unhappy than uncertain. I think we started discussing this in last week's show and then we wrapped up. He says we're so scared of the unknown, like leaving our job or trying out something new, that even if we're unhappy with where we are right now, we prefer the certainty of being unhappy rather than uncertainty and happiness. That makes sense. So he says that if you want to be part of the new rich, then you need to flip that and choose uncertainty over unhappiness. Like, for example, I'd rather be uncertain than unhappy. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Like in terms of...
Pardon?
Sorry, further away. So people would rather be uncertain than happy. People would rather be happy. Wait, what did you say?
So at the moment, people would rather be uncertain. No, people would rather be certain and then happy.
Yeah.
So, like, for example, okay, I'm in this job. I'm not happy, but there's a certainty there. There's a security there.
It's because, yeah.
Sorry, go on.
It's because it's the measure of uncertainty. Do you know, like, being uncertain is going to lead to, for those people, it's going to lead to unhappiness anyways. So they'd rather be confident and financially stable and certain that they've got that income there to ward off a future unhappiness. So it's basically one negativity. It's like the better of two evils, or the worse. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah,
that's it. Yeah.
But that's you saying that there's definitely that uncertainty is definitely going to lead to unhappiness. It's not. It's a risk for sure. There's a risk there, like that it could cause. Taking that risk could cause unhappiness, but there's also a chance that entering the realms of uncertainty and taking that risk could actually benefit. Take that risk, you might actually get something from it. So yeah, it's a risk for sure, but it's whether you want to take the risk. And being part of the new rich, you need to take the risk. If you want to be part of the new rich, you need to be uncertain and potentially happy. So, and it's difficult. It's definitely difficult, especially when you're talking about livelihoods and paying bills. It's not all like, that easy. But I don't know, like, isn't the reason why you pay your bills so you can have a better and happy life? And if you're not happy, then what's the point? Does that make sense?
Yeah. I can imagine. I don't know. Sometimes it's just an obligation, isn't it, to fit the mold of what society expects you to do.
Yeah.
So, do you know, like, for example, from Muslim to non-Muslim perspectives, from a Muslim perspective, children don't really move out until they get married, right? And that's probably a fair statement to say for both like men and women. Maybe a university might have a different spin in the mix, but that's from a Muslim perspective. Now, from a non-Muslim perspective, it's like as soon as you hit the age of 18, it's like, right, that's it. You should have your independence, or you look down upon for living with your parents still in your 20s. You're seen as sponging off your parents and using your parents' bank account type of mentality. So I think part of it is to do with the expectations and trying to fulfill those expectations that people have in society of you. If that makes sense. That's what I personally sort of gather from that.
No, it's true. And as I've said, it's not as easier said than done for sure. Like, there's the expectations, but then there's also the practicalities that, food is, you need to put food on the table. If you've got a family, if you've got kids, you've got bills to pay yourself, food needs to come you need to put food on the table. So it's not that easy, but sometimes, but then again, it goes back to at what cost are you you have the certainty, but at what cost? And also, like, you're putting food on the table, but if you're unhappy, you might be saying, but if you're unhappy, that's going to affect your well-being. It's going to affect your relationship. It's going to affect the well-being of your family. So ultimately, like, yeah, you're feeding them and you need to feed them, but I don't know. I hope you understand where I'm coming from.
Basically, do you know the fact that a lot of young people are moving out of their home, like parental homes, so they can sort of prove a point that they are independent. Usually universities that first stepping stone, but it's unnecessary wastage and an unnecessary waste of having to pay extra council tax, extra rent, stress of having to basically cook and clean for yourself. And I think a lot of young people are not ready for that because they're trying to just get so much out of life at such a young age, rather than just trying to focus on how to build up their own income streams so that they can afford the lifestyle that they want, rather than struggling to have the lifestyle that they want. So
And
do you know this whole idea? Sorry, that whole idea about happiness. It's you need to redefine what happiness is, not actually figure out what it is for you. Because for some people, following the traditional lifestyle route, you feel like, because for example, you feel like you have to be married by 25. Maybe non-Muslim versus Muslim experiences might be different, but sometimes you feel like you have to have found a life partner, be married, bought your own house, got your like good car, have kids by a certain age, and that doesn't necessarily apply to every single person. Does that make sense?
No, that makes complete sense, and that's basically what he's saying. Like you were saying, you need to, redefine what happiness is, and that's what the first part of the acronym is. It's D for define. So you're spot on. But yeah, you're right. It's that definition, but it's also the practicalities, and it's also, like you said, societal expectations, and changing that mentality and normalizing that. Normalizing the new rich essentially, and the new rich attitude, which I guess will, happen eventually, but it's not as easy. So yeah, that's define your dreams, define your fears, and risk uncertainty for happiness. So that's how Tim Ferriss describes it. He's got a list of 6 questions that are really actually useful to ask ourselves. I like personally don't follow all of them, but I have incorporated them into my way of thinking. So now whenever I find myself doing or not doing something because I'm scared, I will run through these 6 questions, and then I realize actually I'm just scared, and it's not that deep as they say. Like it's not as big as a risk. It's probably just my own fears and my own self that's stopping me. The questions are: number 1, what are you not doing because you're scared? What are you missing out on by not doing those things? Why aren't you doing those things? What is the absolute worst case scenario? If the worst thing happened, how would you fix it? And finally, if you wanted to go back to how things were before you made the change, how would you do it? So this is what I asked myself when I began a few projects recently. I spoke to a few friends. I ran through the worst case scenarios. And I think, as I said last week when we were covering this, the biggest thing, the biggest fears I had weren't actually that big. It was more like, what if people don't like my product? What if nobody buys it? What if nobody likes it? But when I went through those questions and asked myself, what's the worst case scenario? What have I got to lose? Actually, it wasn't that much. What I had to gain was actually a lot more than what I had to lose. And you ask yourself, will I regret not doing this when I'm older? Now, if I didn't do it, I probably would have regretted not. Life gets busy. You don't know what responsibilities come your way. And I know that if I didn't bite the bullet and actually just do it, I probably would have regretted it, even if it doesn't take off massively. The fact that I've did it and accomplished it and taken that risk is actually feels better than having that regret later on. So yeah,
actually, that reminds me of a conversation we had a while ago about perfectionism.
Yes.
But before we come on to the topic of perfectionism in work, there's a comment by Ruwaida here. So can you see it on the screen?
Yes, I can. Hang on, I've just gone back to the screen.
Really interesting.
No, I can't see it. Yeah. I think my screen. I'm sorry. I think my screen's a bit delayed. Do you want to read it out for us?
Yeah. So Rawaida's put, Assalamualaikum sisters. I'm taking a uni work break, listening to you both. Alhamdulillah. I think this actually applies to the happiness but uncertainty conversation that you're having right now. I know for sure I enjoy listening to you both, but the uncertainty that comes with not working on my assignments right now is low-key stressful. But alhamdulillah, I'm hoping this energizes me to get on with my work once the show is over, inshallah. I need to work anyways. I've been working on this assignment for hours.
So Allah make it easy for you and grant you success on this assignment and the whole of your studies. I mean. That comments just come up now. But yeah, Jazakallah Khair for listening as well, Sister Ruwaida. And Jazakallah Khair for your comment. Yeah, Allah make it easy for you. I would not like to go back to uni days.
And actually, Malahat wrote, happiness is very momentous. Is that, momentous, as in you need something to keep a few like happiness is not like a state, that you
Yes.
want to achieve. It's not, no one can be happy 100% of the time, because the only way that we know what happiness is, by definition, really, is by virtue of its opposite, which is
Yes.
sadness or grief. So
Yes.
happiness is more like a journey to, or a state of being it, not necessarily achieving it. Does that, I
Yes.
hope, make sense to people? Or does that make sense to you, Mariam? Like,
Yeah,
it's not
no, that makes sense. That's what I was saying before as well, that
Yeah.
happiness within itself is another conversation for another time, because defining it is a whole show within itself. So yeah, no, I completely agree with that. Yeah, that's a fair statement. So yeah, so going back to the point, is there anything that you think that you, I mean, not to share your innermost personal dreams but or goals, but is there anything generally speaking that any experiences that you've had where you have chosen uncertainty over security? I'll say security rather than happiness, because it's kind of what he's alluding to ish.
Yeah, actually, I have got an example. So a few years ago, I used to work in a call center, and it was a fixed wage. You know what you're going to get salary wise, decent salary for like part time, decent-ish. So you know what to expect. You know how to budget basically. But I was deeply unhappy at that work center, like at that call center. Really hated it. I was basically on like antidepressants by the end of it. And I was really surprised I lasted as long as I did. And it was such a bad experience in that work environment. You just felt like a cog in the machine, like a 0 and 1. You didn't feel valued at all. So I actually took a wage drop. So like quite a big wage drop compared to what I was on at the call center, to come work for this Dawa organization, right? That I'm currently working for, alhamdulillah. But it's because I knew that if I loved this job so much that I was doing it voluntarily, right, working in Dawa as a volunteer, and I loved, working for the Dawa so much as a volunteer that I would even put in annual leave from my call center job, right? Annual leave, take off holidays just to be able to do some Dawa projects, just to go in and do like school workshops and stuff that we do. So alhamdulillah, for me, I knew that the payoff was going to be worth it, because mentally I'd be much happier, because I know now that if I can get a job with this organization, a job but that I was doing voluntarily anyways, because I was so happy with it, then it was just going to be a blessing to get paid for it now, even though I knew that I would have to rebudget my entire lifestyle. I'd have to work out how to make, how to live with the money better. So for me, like, that reminds me, it puts into perspective, when the going gets tough, so to speak, when times feel hard. Actually, I went from that position to this position, and I don't want to go back to where I've been, even though the money was better, if that makes sense.
Yeah, no, completely. No, mashallah, yeah. No, that's a fantastic example of choosing the uncertainty, but it leading in happiness, and
Yes.
feeling more satisfied and content in oneself as well. So yeah,
Do
no, that's
you have an example in your sort of life? I'm putting the spot now, haven't I?
Yeah, I'm just trying to think of the word. I'm so blessed, like alhamdulillah. I can never express the gratitude I have towards Allah in the jobs that I've had. I've only ever had 3 jobs in my whole life, which I've usually stay long term, and I've loved every one of them. Like, I've happily stayed behind, done extra hours, taken work home. I worked with libraries and arts for 10 years, and thoroughly loved working there, working in the children's department. Then worked with IDC, that's our organisation that we're talking about, which I still volunteer for. Absolutely loved working there, love volunteering for the organisation. Like you said, so much reward, so much barakah, so much satisfaction. And now the job that I have now, like, I absolutely adore. So in respect to work, probably not so much. I guess projects more. So I have had lots of projects where I thought, what's the point in putting myself through all this stress for potentially nothing to happen? And I must admit, you mentioned the perfectionism thing. That's something that's really stopped me, and it's something that he gets to a little bit later on in the book. This idea of like perfectionism, and it has stopped me. But recently, through reading these books and going through these points, I must admit, taking those chances on investing in a business, for example, has paid off. Like, I'm so happy, like I said before, that I've actually taken the risk, because I'm not where I want to be ideally, but I know that it's baby steps. And even if it doesn't work out, I'm proud of myself for taking the chance, making the risk, and actually accomplishing, at least starting off the business. So I guess the projects, the businesses that I've started and the projects that I've been involved with, and the accomplishments that I've had outside of work have all been risks. Because with work, it's not much, you work, you get paid, but these passion projects that you have, they are a risk, because it's usually, you don't have like a big organization or a company behind you. It's usually just you're putting in the time, you're putting in the money, you're putting in the man hours. So it's a risk for it to do all that, and at the end of the day, for it not to potentially work out. So I guess that's my example. Starting like small businesses and passion projects. Is that, that's a decent example, right? Is it? No?
Yeah, I think the point you made about risk is quite interesting, actually, because I never thought of it from that perspective before. Do you know, when you're an employer and you have employees, you're paying your employees whatever amount you want, or like whatever you agree to in your contract. But as an employee, your employer is the one who's carrying the risk in case the organization goes bankrupt or whatnot. And the worst that's going to happen to you is that you might get laid off, you might become redundant. But that's not, you don't have to deal with all the back end risk. All you have to do in your contract is paid what you're contracted to do at the bare minimum. So I think one of the benefits in terms of employment versus being an employer is, as an employer, you carry more risk, but also that risk might pay off. Whereas as an employee, you're paying in terms of your time. And obviously you're not as getting as much in your wages as you might want to get, because you're avoiding the risk. So does that sort of make sense?
Yeah. Like, mashallah, this is why we're friends, Mariam. You always manage to articulate my jumbled up thoughts in a really cohesive way, mashallah. That's exactly what I was trying to say. That what Mariam just said, basically. Yeah, it's true. No, it's definitely true. But I think the pandemic in particular has been a kind of a reason that a lot of people have started their businesses. Obviously, we're in lockdown, people weren't working. We were given the gift of time. There was lots of things that have been put on the back burner. We make excuses, like Tim said, about the time never being right, and we use that, like, time's never right. The time's never right. I don't have time. I don't have the opportunity to do these things or think about them or work on them. But the lockdown, as awful as it was, really gave us that opportunity to work and develop these things. And I think that's why a lot of small businesses have kind of popped up now, which is really brilliant to see. And I think may Allah grant all these small businesses success and put barakah in them, including mine. I mean, so it's tough, but I think it's worth it. I definitely, when describing and summarizing the book, we're sharing his points and we're sharing our own. And it may sound like we're just saying them in a very blasé way. Like, we understand that it's easier said than done. It's not that easy. But, if you just, sometimes, not always, it's not always practical to take the risk. We understand that. But sometimes it is worth it. And sometimes it can lead to, like, a really, really fruitful result, inshallah. So, I guess, it depends on people, personalities, and situations, but if you want to be part of the new rich, then you've got to take those risks, according to Tim Ferriss.
Can I ask a question? Just made me think, what is there a time that it might apply where you shouldn't go with the risk, with a more risky route? Like, I'm trying to think of a time or a situation where the whole follow your gut type of instinct shouldn't kick in, or but where you shouldn't risk the risk.
I have one. I think if you're the sole, breadwinner, the sole breadwinner in a family, and you've got a big family, I think then maybe think twice. Again, you never know. You might have this £1 million idea that, if you take the risk, could change your life. But it's it's the within those times where I'd be like, like, I think Tim Ferriss is not just saying just take the leap blindly. He's advising that you, like, research and develop and like, think about it. Don't just blindly jump. But at the same time, I think if you're in that situation, then you have to think a little bit harder than the rest. I would say.
Hmm.
Because obviously that's the only example I can think of. I'm trying to think of any other examples. If it's going to be at the detriment of something else, or like at the detriment of your studies, for example, if you're like at university and you've got a project, or of your family because you're the sole breadwinner. I mean, even then, if it's thought out enough, just take the jump. But I guess it's not like, it's not going to be for every single person. And obviously, actually, no, I take that back, because we're thinking of big leaps, big risks. The ideas that you might have might start off small. It's about those small steps as well. They might be risky, but they are small risks. So I guess the bigger the risk depends on a person's personal situation. I don't know.
Actually, there is a comment here, and I was just thinking of it at the same time. Gigi's put, we asked the question, when is a time where taking the risk might not be the most viable thing to do? Gigi's put, if you are the breadwinner, you can take risks, but just risk less. As in, I think what that means, and I'm thinking of the same thing, like, just be smart about your risks. I know that sounds a bit funny.
Like I just said. Yeah, no, of course.
By definition, a risk is like obviously risky, right? There's no guarantees to it. But maybe being smart on your risks. So, for example, put that phrase, don't put all your eggs in the same basket. Maybe if you've got someone as a financial backer, someone to help you invest into the risk avenue that you want to delve into, maybe have a backup plan to it. So just in case it doesn't work out, then you're not going to be completely jeopardizing the family situation, especially if you are the breadwinner taking this risk.
Yeah,
that makes sense?
No, exactly like Gigi. That's literally what we were talking about. So yeah, no, that's spot on. I completely agree. And like you said, risk by its nature is risky, but there are different levels of risk. So I definitely agree with that.
There's a commentator called Lala Rook, because we were talking about perfectionism for a few brief moments, a minute earlier on. Lala Rook has put, I was reading a book on perfectionism a few hours ago, and someone asked who is the writer. Malahat asked who is the writer. And Lala Rook has said, Raj Shafran and Sarah Egan. The book is called, I put on the screen, Overcoming Perfectionism. That's a good recommendation maybe for us to look into. And if you manage to read it in time, maybe you can discuss that next time. Because perfectionism, as I mentioned before, is that, obviously it's a massive topic, perfectionism, but it can be so debilitating as well. Where
massively.
Yeah, exactly. Where you feel like if it's not going to be right, that you can't even begin to begin with. Like, if you envision it a certain way and it doesn't turn out that way, having started it can feel so crippling and feel like, oh, I shouldn't have started it because I'm not going to get it right.
It's like that. This is my problem. It's the all or nothing mentality, and this is something that's hindered me massively and delayed a lot of my progress, because it's like it has to be perfect or I'm not doing it at all. And if the examples of a business, I've done various other projects in the past, but just more recently, drawing on more recent experiences, starting on a business, it's never going to be perfect straight away. That's the nature of most things, is that you start, they grow, they develop, they expand, and they improve. And so expecting that, putting those expectations out there and on yourself is just really, like you said, debilitating. And it's something that has kind of hindered me for so many years, until I discovered the Pareto principle. And that is something that actually Tim Ferriss talks about within this D part of the acronym. He said the Pareto, it goes on really nicely onto the Pareto principle, which is that 80% of the results come from 20% of the inputs. So he says
80% of the results come from
20% of the inputs. So he says that the idea that the crucial let me see what I'm trying to find the quote. 20% of the actions give us 80% of the results. And he said that's a good example for overcoming perfectionism. And so it's basically a friend of mine actually, who would often comment on my perfectionism, would say, think about it like this: 80% or nothing. 80% or nothing. Like, you're never going to get 100%. Be happy when you get to 80% of what you think that 80% of the total, you should be happy with that. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I've heard that before actually. Put a little bit of it in now and reap the rewards after type of situation. Gigi's put a comment on the screen as a tip keep an investing pot. So if you have £100, keep reinvesting and don't take from that pot until you've reached like times 10. So what's 100 times 10? Like 1,000.
Yeah.
100. Oh wait,
1,000.
yeah, 1,000.
I'm so glad I'm not the only one that has poor math skills yet. 1,000.
And then she goes, before you know it, you'll be rich, and I'm still working on it, she says.
Inshallah. Allah put so much barakah in your risk, sister Gigi. And yeah, make you a millionaire or however billionaire with your investing. Sister Gigi has some good financial tips. She's a good sister to ask when it comes to investing. I'm not the most financially literate. Actually, there's a person on social media that does discuss brilliant and suggests brilliant books on how to become financially literate. And that's one of my aims for this year. It's been one of my aims for many years, to be honest. But one of my aims for this year is to read those books and just be a bit more financially educated, because there's definitely somewhere that there's a big gap in my knowledge with regards to that. But, Gigi was talking about money, but, the risk and business and taking action doesn't always have to have a cost. Nowadays, we talked about passive income, which we'll get to again a bit later on. He talks about it in the book. These things actually don't cost. They cost time, obviously, which we have both agreed that is an important resource, but they don't cost money. So doing things digitally, doing things online, providing services, it still costs time, but it's not as risky. You're not losing, money, a secure job, that kind of thing. So yeah, so it's not just taking a risk. You're not just, you don't have to lose money in taking risks. So I'm just trying to look for the next point. The third thing he talks about, actually, this is actually a really good point, and this is the point that we discussed when we were talking about the book, Atomic Habits. So the third part of the D acronym is he talks about batching. So doing tasks that are similar together. For example, we discussed, I think when we were talking about Atomic Habits, we were talking about rather than doing a food shop every day, doing it once a week. I think that's what we discussed. Do you remember that, Mariam, when we were talking?
Yeah, actually, Mariam, just before we move on to that next segment, there is a comment on the screen. I'm just looking at it and I'm reading it, and I'm trying to process it. And I've just realized this is such an amazing point. So Lalo Rook has put, it's linked to procrastination. So you delaying anything often results in not the best result. And this reinforces the belief of perfectionism.
Okay,
so
I need to process it now.
I was sitting there trying to process that whilst you were speaking. I was thinking, what? This makes sense, but it doesn't. But now it does make sense. And honestly, it's like a revelation coming to the mind. Right, so
delaying anything often results in bad results, and this reinforces
procrastination. So this mind blown. This makes more sense than anything that I've thought about over the past few years when it comes to this idea of perfectionism, because I've suffered from that so many times. Do you know, at university, starting an essay, write this assignment, and it's like, oh my god, I've got the thought processor. I know what I want it to be like, what I want it to sound like, the voice of my essay. But actually getting there and starting it is the hardest thing. And actually, when you realize what a lot of people who are not influencers, but self-help coach types of people, on TikTok and stuff, and they say, just do it, just start, put pen to paper. Don't worry about the perfectionism. Don't worry about how great it's going to be. Because unless you start, you're not going to have a chance to even critique how great it is or not, unless you 100%. Actually start. So just start, regardless of how mint it's going to be or not. And I like that.
Yeah, that's spot on. No, that comment is spot on, and your comment after that was spot on as well, because that's a common theme within all these books and all these kind of videos is just start, just do it now, and just take the first step, which we'll get again. Something guys are so far ahead, mashallah, which we'll get onto a little bit later on in the book. But yeah, it's just getting started, making the first step. But procrastination as well. Actually, I was reading a book on it is called, I'm currently reading it, it's called The 5-Second Rule, and it's by Mel Robbins, and it is fantastic. It's brilliant. I still prefer Atomic Habits. I think Atomic Habits is definitely up there, but this book is definitely worth a read. And she talks about this system and this kind of practice that she developed. She actually, what it started off with was she was doing a TED Talk on something else. She was asked to do a TED Talk, and within the TED Talk, she just mentioned this thing that she does to help her be more productive, just casually. It wasn't the main focus of the talk, but actually it literally caught on, went viral, and now I think she's a CNN commentator. She's got her own businesses. She's one of the most female book speakers in America, if not the world. She's like really, really done fantastically well. And within the book, she talks about procrastination and how procrastination actually stems from anxiety or stress. I can't remember. Maybe I'll try and find it for next week. But she does a whole thing on procrastination and the emotions behind procrastination. It's very interesting. I'll have to find it for next week, inshallah. But it's definitely a book that we recommend. I mean, actually, we're saying next week. If we're here next week, it may be Eid next week, potentially Wednesday or Thursday. If that's the case, then what we'll do is we'll try and put a set of book recommendations on the social media, perhaps. And yeah, we'll include the 5-second rule in that. Yeah, I'm at the end. I'm in the last few chapters, but it's brilliant. It's really, really, really beneficial. I'll definitely recommend it. So yeah, procrastination, perfectionism. And then, as I was saying before, he goes on to talk about batching, so doing similar tasks together. We mentioned shopping, and he mentions like another example that some people give is like, rather than doing the laundry every single day, do it once a week. So another example is actually checking emails. I never check emails. I'm awful at checking emails, but I know a lot of people check their emails regularly, like even every hour, every couple of hours. So another example of like batching your tasks is maybe just checking them once in the morning, once in the evening, and chances are you're probably not going to miss anything majorly important if you're checking like once or twice a day at a regular time. And it'll probably free up your time to be more productive in other areas of your life. Marium, I know that you within work have a lot of emails. Do you find that they take up a lot of your day? And do you think that checking them twice a day would be actually more beneficial for you?
I have a really bad habit of waking up, and one of the first things I do is check my emails. I don't know why. I'm just like, it's just one of those things, and they tell you, don't they? They always say, to have good habits, do not check your phone for the first hour when you wake up, or for the first 2 hours. And the first thing I do is always go straight into my email. I don't know why. Not as if I'm expecting anything, but
emails as well. Emails are so boring. At least check social media.
Oh God, yeah, that's true. That's another whole topic in itself. But do you know Lala Rook? I don't know who Lala Rook is, but they've got some amazing tips today. And I feel like Lala Rook, I don't know where you live, but if you are local to Newcastle, I know this is Marium's Baraka box.
No, I was thinking the same thing, Marium. You read my mind.
I want to give it to Lala Rook because if you are local to Newcastle, come collect it, because they've just given it some more tips here. So sometimes it's on the screen. Sometimes sometimes we're more productive when we're short on time due to the pressure, but everyone deals with pressure differently. So we need to figure out our personal optimum level of pressure. I'm like, wow, that's exactly what I used to think all the time. Like that's exactly it, man. I don't know why that is, but it is.
These people need to be actually presenting the show, because that's the next point that Tim Ferriss talks about. I'm not even going to do it in order. I'm going to literally skip forward to the point where he's talking about, where is it? It's a rule. I think it's called Parkinson's law. Let me just check. Parkinson's law. Yeah. SubhanAllah, literally the next point we was going to make. He says that Parkinson's law is when work expands to fill the time allocated. So for example, for me, I was preparing for the show. I was meant to do it last week after the show, but because I had a whole week to do it, I didn't get it done until today. So that's basically going on what Lala Rook has said, that, where's the comment gone? It's gone. Do you want to read it out again, Mariam?
Yes. There you go.
Oh, there we go. That we are more productive when we're short on time. Yeah, that's called Parkinson's law. I won't go into it too much, but Google it, research Parkinson's law, and it's how work expands depending on how much time we've got. And it's true, like, we might have a task that will take us, say, an hour. If we have an hour to do it, we will definitely get it done. If we have a week to do it, it will take us a week to do it. And that's
I've heard that. I've heard of that.
Yeah.
Where you just told me actually Parkinson's law.
Parkinson's law.
What are you saying basically? Like, for example, are you talking about those people that like students, and basically if you give them a month, they'll take a month to do the essay, but if you give them a day, they'll do it in a day? It's because like they're going to crack more.
Exactly. Work expands depending on how much time we
allocated.
we allocate it. Exactly.
That's
yeah.
amazing.
It is. It's so
Parkinson's
true. I can think of. I mean, I just give the example of this preparing for the show, but so many examples where if I was actually, and that's why actually just kind of moving slightly off, but not so much. It's now one thing that I do now is I time everything. It's actually ridiculous. Like my family kind of are amused, but they've actually picked up on the habit where I set, and actually you can get these productivity cubes that have timers on them. I set 15 minutes and like, okay, I'm going to do the kitchen. I'm going to give myself 20 minutes. And because I'm quite competitive anyway, even with myself, I'm like, okay, 20 minutes, do the kitchen. Whereas if I don't have a timer on it, I'll tidy the kitchen, I'll go on my phone, I'll maybe get a cup of tea, I'll procrastinate, get distracted because I don't have a time or a deadline allocated to it. But when I know I've got 15-20 minutes, I'm literally bish bash bosh in and out. And that's just a basic simple example. I mean, the student thing is another example. Like when you know you can get a deadline, then you're literally going to stretch it right until the extension date, I guess. If you
Is that
go,
what
if you're able to
Rowena?
get
I
extension.
wonder if that's what Rowena's doing right now. She's doing her essays, isn't she? She's gonna be like, right, okay, last hour, let's get on with it now.
No, that's
I'm joking.
mashallah. And that's just smart. She can multitask. I'm sure she's doing
Mashallah,
two at
mashallah.
one. Mashallah. But yeah, so that's Parkinson's law, and that's a really, really fantastic point.
Yes, Malaha has asked Parkinson's law question mark. Yep, that's right, Malaha. And there's a really beautiful comment by someone called Maki Khan. In Ramadan, you get double the blessing, hence 2 Mariums on the panel, Marium squared, lol. That is actually really
Khair. I love that. If what's the other listener called?
Maki Khan. I'll put it back on the screen.
Yeah, Maki Khan. That was definitely Jazakallah Khair. That was not the Mariam bit, but the double the blessings in Ramadan was spot on. But the Mariam bit was quite nice too.
Unfortunately, Allah Laruk lives in Manchester, so inshallah that Barakah Box is up for grabs. But do you know what? May Allah reward all of you guys for listening in, because I've really enjoyed all your comments so far. And do you know, like when you guys interact, it's more for us to bounce off and have this discussion, because now I feel like we're all having this discussion, even though where we've got the audio, you guys are writing back to us. It's actually really interesting hearing other people's perspectives.
It really is.
And actually, that book recommendation about perfectionism by Lala Rook earlier, I'm going to actually look into that and see if I can get a copy as well. I'm just trying to quick look for it. Overcoming Perfectionism. So I'm going to look into that book. Actually, Mariam, you work in a bookshop, so that'd be good.
I was gonna say, I was waiting. I was hoping you just carry on chatting, and I will have a look to see if it's available, and then maybe I don't know. Overcoming, what was it? Perfectionism. Overcoming perfectionism. Here we go. Do you remember the author? Was it Roz Shafran?
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah. I have got a copy here. Mariam, we'll sort you out a copy, inshallah.
Yay.
Maybe, I don't know if we can. Out of stock online. We can get a copy, and then we can probably discuss it next week. We're thinking also, inshallah, maybe perhaps continuing this after Ramadan. It's a conversation that me and Mariam have to have, depending on our time and things. But if that's the case, we were thinking of, I don't know, I might as well just air it here, and then you guys can let us know what you think of doing like a monthly book club where we recommend a book, we all read it together. For example, it could be Overcoming Perfectionism, and then we discuss it on the show. So Mariam and I on the show, and then you all through the comments. So let us know what you think about that and how many of you would be interested.
Actually, Mariam, I've just realised you've got a good idea.
What?
Do you know this is like all a digital studio? So we can invite the people who are recommending the books, like for example, Lala Rook, for example, in the future, if after Ramadan we do carry on with the show, then we can invite you on as a guest to actually speak as well. So you will give you the link on how to join behind the scenes, and then you can actually interact that way. So anyone who wants to do that can do that, inshallah. Obviously,
the virtual book club.
There'll be some rules, like obviously make sure that you're not saying anything inappropriate. But apart from all the basic stuff, then it'll be really good actually to have you guys on the show, especially those people who've got some really good tips and tricks. Alhamdulillah, Rowena said she's got most of her essay done. She just needs to proofread. Munib Shah is asking, think they're just asking generally to the commenters and the viewers as well. What are your tips to stop procrastinating?
I have one, if I may.
Yeah.
I would say there's two tips. I would say number one is that well, actually, I'll give you one. She asked for one tip. The main tip I would say is procrastination comes from a feeling. It comes from a stress. It comes from being overwhelmed. If you say to yourself, okay, for example, I am only, say you have to read a book. It's saying to yourself, I'm only going to read one book a day. You know, one page a day. Or if you have loads of cleaning to do, for example, if you say to yourself, you know what, I'm only going to do 10 minutes and I'm going to be satisfied, that's going to be my goal ticked off. A lot of productivity gurus recommend you just doing a very, very small amount. And because what that does is it builds momentum. You either do that 10 minutes and you're satisfied because you've achieved what you set out to achieve, doing 10 minutes of whatever, or you actually continue because it builds momentum, because it's just getting started. So once you've actually started something, you are more likely to continue. So I would say just give yourself, whatever you're procrastinating from, tell yourself, I'm going to do 10 minutes or one page or like a minute amount, and do that much. Just do that much. Does that make sense, Marium?
Yeah, definitely. I like that idea. I don't know, we discussed the whole... Yeah, sorry.
So I was just going to say that even like, reading your Quran, they say even an ayah a day. Like, if you say, oh, I don't read as much Quran, I would love to read so much Quran, but, whatever excuse, even if you read one ayah a day and you're reading it every day, chances are if you've opened up your Quran to read that one ayah, chances are you're going to read, the page or the surah, depending on how long it is. So, it's doing small stuff.
Ruwaida's got a good point. Get rid of your phone, put it in a different room, and focus on the work you need to do, because phones are so distracting.
Yeah,
that is
definitely
a good
true.
point. For me, sometimes it's not even just the phone. It's just like trying to put on those digital apps, like where the apps time out. So if your screen app thingies are, I'm not describing it right, but basically it's like once you've had too much screen time on a certain app, the app locks.
Yes, it locks your phone, doesn't it?
Yeah, that's funny, but like obviously you can just do that, but actually just chucking the phone out of the room is such a good idea.
Yeah.
Having less distractions. So yeah, the phone comes under that as well.
Also making it hard. Remember we were talking about atomic habits and we were talking about friction and creating friction towards bad habits. So, putting your phone away is good, but also deleting your app. So, for example, for social media, I did this for a long time, where when I was on social media, I would delete the app so that if I wanted to go and check, I would have to log in through a browser, which is also like a bit more time consuming. So I was less likely just to go on, because I'd be like, oh, I have to like go on the browser and then I've got to log in and I'll forget it. So you still have access if you're not like completely there and like completely getting away from social media. Like the first step is to, as he says in Atomic Habits, is make that habit difficult. And by doing that, I think a tip is to just delete the apps and go on through your browser. Seems a bit odd, but definitely works for me. So yeah, Mariam, any final comments? This could be potentially our last show as well.
Oh no, I think there'll be time for one more show before thingy, because I don't think it'll be Eid next Wednesday. Probably Thursday or Friday, personally.
Oh, I read that it was Wednesday or Thursday.
Oh, might be wrong.
Maybe wrong.
I think it's more like Thursday, Friday. But Eva has put one of the main reasons the Ottoman where's the top copy? Yeah. One of the main reasons the Ottoman Empire fell was not due to external forces, but due to excessive luxury and little to no innovation. That's why less is more. And in quotation marks, idle hands are the devil's playthings. Such an amazing contributions, you guys. Breezy B, yes, I think this is our sister Breezy B. Good advice, actually. If I can't do a mountain worth, I won't even attempt a molehill. That is funny. Also, another comment by Breezy B. I've started doing a productive timer. I'll give myself a 20-minute slot to do as much as possible throughout the day, and then I can laze around in between, guilt-ish.
Yeah, that's exactly what I was saying. Completely
that is a good
agree.
Yeah, I like that.
Because a part of procrastination is it's something to do with your emotions and your stresses and all that kind of thing. So when you have hit your target, and if you've done that 20 minutes, you feel a lot more accomplished, you feel your well-being is better, you feel better within yourself, and then you're more likely to do more as well. I mean, you don't have to, because if you ticked it off, you've done your 20 minutes, but often or not, you are more likely to actually continue and build that. As that momentum builds, you do more. Like, oh, I've done like the dishes, I might as well put them away, that kind of thing. So yeah, Jazakallah Khair, brilliant comments.
Okay.
So that's it for this week's show. Apparently I was incorrect, and Eid might be Thursday or Friday, so there will be a show, which is good because we didn't get through most of the acronym. So we've got E, A, and L to finish, inshallah, and that will perfectly round up this series. So Jazakallah Khair for listening and for your fantastic comments. We'll be in touch with the winner of the Baraka box, inshallah. Let us know which of you are local. Actually, we need to put that next time. Let us know where you're from. It'd be interesting to hear where you guys are listening from. But that's all from me, Mariam. Anything else to say before we wrap up?
No, that's it. Jazakallah khair, everyone, for listening. Thank you so much, and thanks for your interactions. And for the Baraka box winner, should we? I think if you guys are local to Newcastle, let us know. Otherwise, I've got someone in mind who's been on the show for the Baraka box.
Brilliant. Okay, enjoy your iftar, and inshallah we will be back next week. Assalamu alaikum.